to run the new Alberta.
They would beg to negotiate a new deal.
The system could not be fixed.
Responsibility isn't something you outsource.
Alberta could be the new America.
All right, our next speaker, founder of Alberta Free and a longtime advocate for democratic reform. Our next speaker will explore how Alberta can exercise its constitutional rights to protect public institutions and working class communities. Please give a warm welcome to Ben Trudeau.
Well, good evening. I've been told that I shouldn't introduce ourselves, but I made a couple of slides here that I don't know if I can get as well, the little clicker to get these slides going. But basically, I will put one straight fact right now. My relationship with Trudeau. Next slide. So my correct answer is yes, I'm first cousin 13 removed from Pierre. Next slide. I don't know about Justin. So, thank you. Thank you. All right, so I was born in 1972 from a very politicized family. I've worked at the organizer and started very early. First referendum, I joined the Liberal Party of Quebec after the Meech Lake failure. Worked through the 92 referendum and then the 95 referendum. And then I became born again Christian on November 30th, 2003, which brought me a break. Thank you. So, and already at the time, I was a very Sovereignist show split on ways and means. I was very controversial, and when I was 22 then. In the bottom picture there, that was the leader of my party, the IDQ, Mario Dumont, who was, and we were very influential in choosing the question of the 95 referendum. Following that, I've worked for the federal government under the first Harper government with Jean-Pierre Blackburn. That brought me to Alberta, moved here in 2008, got married in 2011, have 4 kids. I am an Albertan, as much as I used to be a Quebecer before. And after the election, I started a lobbying company with my business partner, George Bears, who's sitting right there. And we've been lobbying to make Alberta more sovereign, to make Alberta self-sustained. Short history, it's important to go back there. So 1534, this is where France start colonizing New France. Through the first 220 years, basically, before the English came, they farmed, they developed Montreal, they also developed all the Midwest, all the Great Lake down to the Mississippi, were all developed by Montrealers. When the U.S. became independent, the king started giving land to Americans that want to remain loyal to the king. And of course, Quebec is bordering New Hampshire, New York, Vermont. So they start giving land that has been farmed by Quebecer for 150 years. So Quebecer didn't like that and said, no, you won't grab my land. And they revolt. And that was a patriot revolt that was squished by hanging the 12 main leaders of that revolt, including lawyers and notaries that were fighting against that. And then when you look at that in 1867, it was more of a peace treaty than a constitution. So a constitution is not a real constitution. It was a peace treaty. They brought 2 other provinces to balance the things, to make the English stop fighting with the French of Lower and Upper Canada. Then if we, let's look at that a bit. I believe that resumed the situation right now. Okay, a lot of Albertans had a lot of hope on a government change, and the problem is not there. The problem doesn't lay who sits in Ottawa. The problem is structural. The problem is made to keep Ottawa and the East in power. The problem, though, of that is that they have a pain in the butt called Quebec. And Quebec is probably the most efficient legislature on the planet to use the Westminster system. Nobody else in Quebec knows better the Westminster system and how to use it. Okay, so Quebec, when the English took over, there's some stats here that 6% of English were controlling 90% of the Quebec economy. The judges, English, were paying twice what a French judge would be paid. 80% of deputy ministers were English. In 1899, in Griffintown, in Pointe Saint-Charles, in Montreal, the life expectancy was 19 years old. In the French community, no loans for the French. This is why Caisse Populaire Desjardins, the credit union, was founded, because a bank wouldn't loan to a French. And the conscription to a French Canadian in the First World War would take your 18-year-old kid, put it on the battlefield, and it was forbidden to him to speak French, because the captain needed to hear what they were saying. So that was the state of the French there. It's important to know that, because from there, after the war, there was an activation of the independence movement. It started by a publication. First, Duplessis was the premier. Adopted the flag, brought the taxes in. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church was overarching, controlling. So in Quebec, you couldn't buy meat on Friday because it was forbidden by the Catholic Church. The priest would come home and ask the lady why she hadn't had babies that year. It was every night at 7 o'clock, everybody on their knees to do the rosary with the cardinal. The baby boomers changed everything. So you have I will just go. This is what the independence movement looked like in the 60s in Montreal. Over 100 bombs being planted by the FLQ, Front de Libération du Québec. What's interesting in all that story is that all the actors, worked for Pierre-Éliott Trudeau in the 50s. All of them, without an exception. He had a publication named Cité Libre, which translates to free speaking. That was an anti-clerical publication. And he hired René Lévesque as journalist. He hired Pierre Vallière as journalist. Pierre Vallière was the founder of the FLQ. So Trudeau knew everybody there. The other thing that he did is that he managed to become friend with all the dictators of the planet, because the people of the FLQ were going to get training. So they were training with Castro. They were training with Arafat. They were training in Algeria after the revolution in '62. They were training with the ACN for the ANC in South Africa. So Trudeau became friend with all these guys. On October 16, the first thing that he did as well when he became prime minister, he moved the headquarters of the Canadian Army from Ottawa to Montreal. So he was preparing that. He was trying a way to trap them, and he did. So October 16, 4 a.m., he called the war measures. The Liberal Party distributed a list that they built up of 459 names. All these people were busted in their house at 4 a.m., dragged out of bed, put in prison. So out of them, these group there, these 11, were still in jail in 1975 without trial. And the one that you see there was extradited to Cuba. And when he came back 14 years later, he was arrested coming out of plane for no reason. So this is what fueled the constitutional crisis that led to the two referendum, 1980, that was lost by 10%, and the one that was part of 1995 that was lost by 1.5% out of 4.6 million vote, 95% participation. Now, based on that, Quebec made move to change their situation and use the Westminster system to their advantage. And when I hear Albertans saying like, oh, of course, Quebec, special treatment. No, Quebec didn't have special treatment. Quebec won and earned with blood what they get. And they learn how to use the Westminster system to their advantage. And the good thing is that it developed a culture in Quebec that is very different than the political culture here in Alberta. So the problem with politicians in Alberta is that for the past 100 years, it's been overwhelmingly conservative. So I remember when I moved here in 2008, I believe there was something like 8 people in the opposition. I mean, so there's no opposition. When there's no opposition, you have to rule for everyone. But in Quebec, there's many opposition. And when you make a campaign, when Parizeau ran his campaign in September 1994, and he said in his campaign, within a year that I'm elected, there's a referendum. Well, within a year he was elected, there was a referendum. It's not a joke. This is a program. People vote for a program. I realize that here programs are secondary. No, you have a bunch of stuff in the program, you're voted in, and then you don't see anything materialize. For me, it was a shock, to be frank with you. And a huge difference between Quebec politician and Alberta politician is that Alberta politician often ask the permission. Can we do that? In Quebec, they do it, and if you're not happy, sue us. That's the difference. In Alberta, they comply with regulation, and then they fight in court, and they hope they win. No, in Quebec, they don't comply with regulation. If you're not happy, sue us. So I think that Quebec start doing recently, they start passing law against the monarchy. The last one, May 27, 2025, the king is giving the throne speech. At the same time, the Quebec National Assembly is assembled. They stop everything when the king's speech starts, not to listen to the speech, but to vote to pass a motion to drain the crown. So they pass a motion saying that we don't want to pay allegiance to the king anymore. That followed in 2022 a motion that to be an MLA in Quebec, you don't have to pay allegiance to the crown. And that followed a defunding of the lieutenant governor office in 2023. And then what they've done, they courier that motion to the king after his speech, delivered in hand. Okay. Now, let's speak about equalization. Everybody's, say, Quebec equalization, Quebec equalization. This is what the real number of equalization transfer. So these numbers is per household since 1957, how much were transferred. Quebec is 7th position. The first position, of course, are the territories. The second one, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. In Canada, to change the constitution is the 750 principle. 7 provinces representing 50% of the population. Do you think that these 3 provinces will ever vote to get rid of that? For us right now, when you drive on the street, you look at every house in Alberta, every house in this province paid $100,000 to the country so far. This is for the Aboriginal people, including a $61 billion settlements in different courts that they had in the past 10 years. This is what every household received by the federal government. Does it show? I believe this is like pure fraudulent management from the First Nation. That's my opinion. So, what I've done, I put all the ministries in Alberta on one column, and all the ministries in Quebec. In Quebec are socialists, everybody knows that, but the socialists found a way to have 3 less ministers than Alberta, who's conservative, so that's another point. But so if you look at the Executive Council, what Alberta did after the 98 judgment of Supreme Court, they created a Secretary of Canadian Affairs. What it is about 2,000 bureaucrats sitting in Gatineau on the other side of the bridge of Ottawa, and their job is to harass the federal bureaucrats every day. And what they do, so in Quebec, when you file your tax, you file a provincial tax and federal tax. Your federal tax, you send your check directly to Ottawa. What this group there, what the Secretariat, the Secretariat to Canadian Relations, what they do, they go to every penny, and then they look at the service they receive for the federal, and they challenge every penny. They say, you're supposed to give us that. We can do that service for $500. You charge us $1,000, give us $500 back. And that's their job. And every year, you know how much they recuperate from what they sent to Ottawa? Over 200%. So you look at, so what I've done in every ministry, so in the left column, you have the Alberta ministry, on the right, the equivalent in Quebec, and basically one need to be added to take full power and full advantage of what the Constitution gave us to do. So you look at agriculture, in Quebec they do their own food inspection, they choose what goes on the shelf, they don't care what Canada Food said and health. They oversee and override all of their health projects in the province. In Indigenous relationship, they manage all the Indigenous program in the province to make sure that it's a link with what they're doing. On the hospital, in fact, I have a friend, he told me 2 weeks ago, he said, "Hey Ben, I'm going to Quebec." So what for? He said, for knee surgery. I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, there's a doctor in Red Deer that does knee surgery, and he rents a surgery room in Quebec because he cannot have it here. And he brings 12 patients at a time to get his knee surgery in Quebec." And so again, and that's related to my own experience. In 1998, we're doing our AGM in Quebec City for the ADQ, and I was dealing with a health file, and I was proposing to enable the doctor to rent the operation room because the province didn't have the money to run them full time. So, and I had 7,000 people protest. The union raised people, they protested. There's the police that came in with their shield, and they put me in the broom closet for 2 hours. When I came out, my car was totally vandalized, destroyed, not usable. The insurance paid for it, but and now they have private hospital, so we can do that. If you look again, we can control all the research. One interesting one is that they control their immigration and they control their EI as well. So they do not control what the feds pays, but they control how they pay, who they pay, and why they pay. And they control all the training as well, all the professional training to be fit to what Quebec needs. So, and then for the immigration, when you immigrate to Quebec, you have to sign a citizen contract. And if you don't sign that citizen contract, so it goes through I think it's three mornings of classes with Quebec history, and then you have to sign that you will learn to speak French if you don't. And if you don't have health care, you don't have a driver's license, and you get out of the province. You're not welcome. So, and all that is constitutional. Quebec controls all of their trade. It's the Gérard Lajoie principle from the 60s. Again, according to the Constitution, we have the right to have offices. Quebec, I heard Alberta have something like 13, probably closet office around the world. Quebec has 53. And now that they're 53, they are prestigious location. In New York, they are a full floor at the Rockefeller Center. They are on Piccadilly Circus in London. They all have the best location to do reception, to bring business people in. It's funny because when Premier Smith went for the inauguration of Trump, she was talking that she was at the Washington embassy and there was nobody from Quebec there. Why? Because they are at their embassy. So the other thing that Quebec did in '84 didn't work, sadly, because the change of government, but we can do it, is that they were about to sign a lease for an island in the Bahamas and create a link and create Quebec territory outside of the province. And that's too, it's constitutional. So that's something we could do. Then if I keep on, so I have a document that will be online that do that, but most likely, most important, collect our tax, collect our pension. The Caisse des dépôts et placements in Quebec started at the same time as the CPP, is 2.5 more performant than the CPP. They have 100 billion less in bank than the CPP with 24% of the population. They own the Cross Iron Mill here. They own the outlet in Edmonton. This is the Quebec government that owns that. So to achieve this, you need no referendum, no court decision, no constitutional challenge, no permission to ask anyone. Strictly majority government in the legislature can do it. And if we do that, we're gonna render Canada so dysfunctional that they will beg to come sit at our table to negotiate a new deal. Thank you.
Sent our best people to Ottawa to fix the system, but the system could not be fixed.
They would beg to come sit at our table to negotiate a new deal.
And that is the way we're going to run the new Alberta.
Yet successive governments, blue or orange, have not done them.
About $1 billion a week on interest payments on the national debt.
It was inserted to bring about a technocratic overhaul of our government.
We're actually all on the same page for now in trying to pursue the same policies that will improve fairness for Alberta.
Responsibility isn't something you outsource.
And complete control of our own destiny here in Alberta.
They don't want to make change now that they know that they can do. Alberta could be the new America.